just want to talk a little bit about money, really, more filthy lucre, and valuing your work and knowing what to charge. I mean, it's a very difficult thing to talk about in a forum like this, I understand, but do you think music generally is still being thought of in terms of a per minute rate in games, and does that work?
It is, and it kind of does and doesn't work. It really depends on the title, the budget, the amount of music, and actually what the context of the music, is it really deeply interactive, or is it fairly linear, and how much complexity is there in the music, and that's so many factors. So it's
I'd say it generally does. I mean, whether in the gaming world you divide it into milestones and it's all very mathematically split up in a very technical accountancy way, like the games world is, and it's very thought out and it's very, I'd say German. But it is, the film and TV world is a lot more. Hey, we got $500,000. Is this enough? Can you make it work? Where do we send a check? There's a lot of historical trust, and I would say a very big thing that I've learned over the years is you really do get what you pay for. There's a reason that massive AAA game sounds fantastic, or that massive, great big Mission Impossible film sounds fantastic. It's because it's recorded with the finest musicians at Air Studios or Abbey Road, and it's got the best engineers, the best orchestrators, the best everything. And those guys cost money. And my job is to try and persuade developers. It's like anything. If your builder comes to your house and you say, I want to build Blenheim Palace, please, but I've only got 20 grand, you're going to get a cardboard copy of Blenheim Palace. But if you've got £500 million, he'll build you Blenheim Palace. It is. I think some developers and games companies don't quite realise what games cost to create. It's not. I mean, it can go right from the bottom of having a composer in a bedroom with a laptop. And you know what? That can sound fantastic. Just like filming a movie with an iPhone can look okay. But really, at the top end of our business, it's about nuance and richness and skill. And that skill level makes things sound fantastic. And it's very important to keep, on the music side of the business, to keep demanding, and I'm going to sound like an agent now, but the fees are as high as possible. Not for the selfish nature of the composer's bank balance, but to be able to create and use the technology and the teams available. And those best people do cost money. So I'm very passionate about that side.
I'd just like to add about the sort of per minute thing that, that's been traditionally the case for a long time. I think it certainly works for me because there's got to be something quantifiable there. It can't just be completely random. With regards to budgeting and things like that, on my current project, we did 3 different budgets for the recording, and it is separate from the A creative fee, and that also works very well. But you've just got to be really, it could just be one solo cello, or it could be, 5 accordions or whatever. But, as long as you understand what's involved, it's also very good to show your knowledge. If it's you doing it and not your agent will obviously be able to do that for you. But if you're doing this part of the exercise to actually show the developer and publisher, every line item, what things really cost, are there any rights issues with hiring 5 accordionists, etc., etc., etc. And then maybe, if we could get away with just using 4 accordions, fine. Show that you're budgetary responsible to the game developer and publisher, and again, that's where you'll build that trust, and they'll keep coming back and hiring you again.
Because it is a difficult thing to talk about, I understand, and I googled game music rates, and I read that a range from $500 to $2,500 per minute, depending on where you are in your career. And do you think is that reasonable?
I would say it goes less and more. I would say top tier composer in US dollars could get 3,000 plus. But then there are people that would do it for $25 a minute, and just to let you know, that doesn't really help anyone, including yourselves and the industry. We don't really want to be part of a race to the bottom. Value your own work. If you value your work, then developers and publishers will.
Yeah. Did you want to?
Yeah, it ranges. Some of my clients cost a lot more than $3,000 a minute. But again, it depends on how many minutes of music is required.
Yeah.
So we do sort of step deals where we might start out at $3,500, $4,000 a minute, but if there are 100 minutes or more needed, it can come down to say $2,000 or $2,000 a minute. So again, every situation is different. It depends on the perception of that composer and their reputation and their experience. But I couldn't agree with Richard more that, you have to value yourself. You have to be proud. You have to know your own worth. And there's always going to be someone to do every job cheaper. And it is an absolute race to the bottom. But if you're quietly confident, and you will find most good publishers and games developers have a budget. Someone has struck a line in, and then they will give you that budget. And then we can try and get that up a bit or whatever. So if they really have no money, well, then you can keep the rights and the soundtrack rights and everything else if you're just starting out. But, broadly speaking, $500 at the very low end for a lot of minutes. That's quite an experienced composer, right up to $5,000 at the very high end per minute of music.
Thank you. That's very helpful, Alistair.
I think as well, I mean, as Richard probably knows as well, the amount of minutes a developer can want for a game, I think they don't really think with that impact, hundreds and hundreds of minutes of music, just time-wise, and how much that's going to cost on their budget. But actually, if there's a composer understands the craft really well and can kind of work and collaborate with them and actually be a bit smart and actually, how can we? You don't need that much minutes of music because somebody's got to edit it, implement it, and it's just a huge job. Actually, how can you be a bit more clever, and that has an impact on the budget for everybody, really, and time-wise, and
Yeah, I mean, I only charge $500 a minute for silence, and I'm pretty good at that. Just for what Alistair said, I mean, once you've got a few games under your belt, as I'm sure most people here have, you will know, or your composer will know, what sort of game is it, what's the proposed amount, many hours of gameplay. You're going to have a pretty good feeling for how much music's required. And some, the the audio director might have 2 hours in mind, but my current project went from 2 to 5 hours in the space of one conversation. So I better go and get on with it. But it's things like that. It's just experience, and then you can sort of plan. And as Darrell's quite rightly said, if it's going to be 4 or 5 hours of music, you wouldn't expect that top rate for every single bit because that's probably a year's worth of work, etc. But if it's 20 minutes of music and it's a quick turnaround, then there's always some talking to be done.
One very, very quick question on that. Would you ever charge less money for, say, if somebody wants a simpler arrangement? I mean, what I'm driving at there is that if it's like a really complex orchestral combat music or something that's incredible amounts of work compared to I don't know, like solo piano and cello, should that ever have any bearing on the rate?
In terms of creative fee, I mean, I wouldn't do that because music's music.
Yep, good.
Mozart wrote simple music. Are you calling him cheap?
Like it, okay. And is it okay to pitch for free? People are expected to enter these beauty pageants, and
yeah, I mean, pitching is something that I mean, I still pitch sometimes. Sometimes I don't have to, fortunately.
Yeah. But maybe someone not quite your level of
I would always try and ask what the pitch budget is, because let's say in commercials they always have $250 or whatever for a commercial pitch, and that's just standard. Some games I have been paid for a pitch, but they wouldn't be the norm, I would say. The current project was an unpaid pitch, and I spent probably 4 weeks on it. So it depends on the project, really.